Hey Double O's, it's Blake over at Bond Life Chicago with another 007 fight breakdown for you guys. Today we're going to be going over 007 and just general knife defenses. Again, disclaimer, I'm by no means an expert in any martial arts. I don't know how to knife fight. I think, if that's something that you guys are interested in, reach out your local areas. There might be somebody that can teach you something like that. I'm based more on the self-defense aspect of knife defense rather than actual uses of attacking with a knife. However, same goes, again, I'm by no means an expert, so if you want to learn more about proper knife defense, that's another thing I would urge you guys to go and try to seek out a local facility or a local training class that's in your area that you can go about learning more about that and just self-defense in general. Again, throughout all the videos, I've said that self-defense is very important. I think that a general knowledge of how to protect yourself in any situation is a great thing to have for males or females. Love of James Bond or no love of James Bond. So again, we're going to go into knife defense today. Starting out, if somebody pulls out a knife and is attacking you with it, they probably are more comfortable with fighting with that knife than you are in defending yourself with that knife. Realizations, you're probably going to get cut at some point. The most important part, and I've said this in a previous video, is trying to protect yourself enough and lasting long enough in that fight so that you don't get cut in vital areas. Vital areas, what do I mean by that? I mean arteries, places that you're going to bleed out quickly. If you get cut here, you get cut in the stomach, and it's not necessarily a deep stab, you're going to bleed. Yeah, it's going to hurt, but you're not going to bleed out so quickly that you're completely helpless. You get cut or stabbed in the arteries, and I mean generally the wrist here, obviously your carotid arteries in the neck, or your arteries here in your thigh. If you get a bad cut there, you're going to bleed out, and you're going to bleed out pretty quick. Depending on how bad it is, it could be within minutes. If it's not as bad, it could be faster, but obviously that's still something where you're going to need to be rushed to a medical facility quickly. So it's important to protect those things. Obviously, you want to protect your neck as best you can. You want to protect your wrists, and you want to protect your thighs. That being said, most of what comes into play for knife defenses is you're using your arms, because most people are probably going to stab either your abdomen area or your neck, head area, chest area. So that goes without saying. You want to use the back of your forearms rather than the front, because if you're going to block a knife strike or stab attack with this, you're basically just giving them the most vital part of your arm. Now, if you use the back of your arm, it's going to hurt, but you're going to protect those vital areas there. With that, one of the other things, and I'm going to circle back again, if somebody attacks you with a knife, they probably are pretty comfortable with that weapon. So the best defense against the knife is to actually create distance, create obstacles or objects in front of you, in between you and that individual, so that you can stay safe or even disengage and run away to safety. In the Bond series, the best example that I can think of for that is at the end of From Russia with Love, when Rosa Klebb is attacking Bond with the poison dagger in the shoe, and he grabs a chair and is blocking her from kicking him with that dagger until he's able to pin her up against the wall. So he creates that distance, creates an obstacle in between them, so that he can't be stabbed, and then he goes about what he needs to do next to protect himself. Any type of obstacle, it doesn't have to be a chair, it could be a couch, it could be a package, it could be a rock, it could be a car, if you're fighting in a parking lot. Just anything in between you guys. Create that distance, give you more time to react if that person does choose to attack, rather than just threaten with that, and try to stay safe as best as you can. Now again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. You're going to want to block with your forearms if you do have to get into that physical altercation. And with that disengaging, you're either going to want to stay as far away from the person as possible and control that distance so that you have time to react. And if and when that attack does happen and you have to block yourself or defend yourself with a block, you want to step in and use as much force as possible with those forearms either way, and get into that person's space. So now they no longer have space to either throw a strong punch or throw a stab or slash at you with that knifed edge weapon. And thus you're controlling the distance, whether you either want to be all the way in or all the way out of that altercation, so that you can control what you need to do to try to keep yourself safe. Now, when I do this, you're throwing out those forearms to block here, or you can come down here if it's lower. You're wanting to use your forearm as best you can with as much force as you can and blocking their arm. And you're actually going to be aiming for what's their radial nerve, which is up here in their own forearm when they open up here to stab you. And that's going to hurt. If you even want to just give yourself a couple punches here, you're going to feel that up and down your arm quite a bit, and it doesn't have to take that much force to do that. And if you hit them well enough there, it's either going to cause enough pain to take the fight out of them, or you're even going to make them drop that weapon because you've actually hit their nerve so hard that their hand just opens up. Win-win either way, but that would be the best way to defend yourself there. And if, again, going back to that, so now let's say maybe somebody in a staircase attacks you with a machete. This never happened in a Bond movie before. You want to hit with so much force that that arm stops going forward, because if you kind of lackadaisically just hit it here and you block when that person's coming here to hit, and you hit slothfully instead of stopping that arm completely, whatever object is in that arm is going to still fling forward. And if it's as large as a machete, it could still strike you, cut you, hit you, and that's bad news. You don't want something like that to happen. I couldn't not talk about this moment in the Bond series while doing a knife defense video. The moment and fight scene where James Bond and the assassin in Quantum of Solace fight, and Bond is actually gets attacked, ambushed more or less by the assassin with that knife in the apartment or hotel room, and he has to defend himself. A lot of this is Krav Maga style or close quarters combat style self-defense and attacking methods and skill. He blocks himself. He uses pretty much, you see in the series, in the scene, he uses pretty much any object he can get his hands on to defend himself and uses its own weapon against that knife, while he does a good job of only getting cut the one time in the arm, which, again, going back to the beginning, odds are you are going to get cut at some point. You just have to face it, try to have to not protect those vital areas again. We actually see, I can't tell if it's a pen or if it's part of the broken glass, but he actually picks it up and uses that as his own sharp edge knife type weapon. And throughout that scene, which only lasts about a minute, fights generally don't last that long. They go pretty quickly. He actually uses that knife edge weapon and attacks it on the assassin's artery in the thigh, thus ending that fight. But that just goes to show, again, that person was pretty skilled with the knife. They get the drop on Bond. He's got to defend himself. As we see time and time again in the series, he uses whatever objects or areas or things in the vicinity to defend himself, as much of an opportunist as possible, and he gets the job done. Again, I'm by no means an expert. I hope you guys liked the video. If you guys have any questions or any ideas, feel free to reach out.